Here's Johnny.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
So serious.
I am Iron Man.
This is a tasty burger.
Welcome to the In Session Film Podcast.
Hello and welcome to Chasing the Gold. I am In Session Film Awards editor Shadan Larkey. It is Christmas morning for me and my fellow Oscar lovers. So I brought one of my favorite Oscar nuts, my fellow Oscar nut, to help celebrate with me today, Amanda Spears. Amanda, you're feeling very happy today. Tell the people why.
I was right. I mean, when we first talked about this, what was it, September? I was right. I said the entire season would come down to two narratives. And we saw both of those narratives form today, and that being, is it PTA's turn with one battle after another? Or, and the more compelling one, is it finally time to award a Black director? I say Black because Steve McQueen is British and he's been nominated in the director category. And the way Sinners performed and the way one battle after another performed, it's going to be a race to the finish, I think.
It is going to be a race. That is the number one text that I keep getting today is, can Sinners actually do it? There's so much passion for this movie. There has been from the very beginning. There's so much to talk about. The headline of the day, as you mentioned, absolutely, Sinners breaks the all-time nomination record with 16 nominations. If there were two sound categories, would have been 17. And can I tell you, Amanda, I made a promise to myself that after the 19th, I wasn't going to touch my Oscar predictions anymore. And I cheated and I changed them last night. And I'll tell you why, because I was looking at my nominations count and I had Sinners getting 15 nominations. And I was like, that's not right. That's not going to happen. I'm overdoing it. So I had Sinners in for 2 song nominations and I took one away. It wouldn't have mattered anyway because I was wrong and we'll get to it. But I mean, this is just such an impressive performance for Sinners. You know, JD, who owns In Session Film, he's always talking about comparing art to sports. And I feel like a sports announcer being like, wow, Sinners, you know, but really just so impressive and crazy, crazy cool to see a genre film that came out earlier in the year, you know, do this well this far into the game is just so cool and impressive, and a massive congratulations to Ryan Coogler and everyone involved. WB,
if this is
30,
it, they're going out on top.
30 nominations across their films, which is just you know, it makes me sad with everything going on with them, and this might be it is the end, I guess, of a very storied Hollywood studio, but just a really great morning for them. What else, as we sort of dive into each of these categories, stands out to you?
You know, the snubs weren't so shocking. I was a little shocked that Wicked got snubbed across the board. I always felt like they probably should have just made one movie. Like, they probably robbed Ariana Grande of her Oscar. They probably robbed Cynthia Erivo of ever being in the conversation. But yeah, I mean, there weren't as many costumes in this one as there was the last one, and it was just a little surprising that across the board, that was the film that got skunked.
Yeah, I think Nikki Glaser nailed it at the Golden Globes when she said Wicked for the money. I think a lot of people felt that way, and that's what we saw. I was really surprised that Paul Tazewell didn't end up coming back. I felt like if anyone from the craft crew, I mean, he's so beloved and such a legend in the industry. So to your point, to have nothing really did surprise me. I was predicting it for 4 categories.
Well, it's hard to feel bad for him when he won a Tony and an Oscar last year.
Yes. He deserves all the awards, but I completely agree. So we will not talk about winners as much today because we have a lot of nomination sort of fun things to get into, and I will have Amanda back, of course, before March 15th. But let's kind of go category by category and talk about these nominations, how we did, what we got right, what we got wrong. If I can just have a minute of bragging time, Amanda, I think I did pretty well. I overall got 84% correct across all the categories, 91% if you cut out the crazy shorts. I got 12 of all of the 24 categories exactly right. So I'm feeling pretty good. I feel like a lot of the things that I missed were things that a lot of people missed, and I stuck with my gut on a few things and got it right. So it's crazy that you can be 10 years removed from school and still be really excited when you feel like you aced the test. You know what I mean?
I got 18 out of the 20 acting or 17 out of the 20 acting nominations, and I was like, wow, that's not my best, but it's still pretty up there.
Okay,
Very
well,
good.
this is great because this is a great teaser for everyone listening to be like, what are the 3 that Amanda got wrong? But before we get into that, let's kind of start from the
I
bottom
think
and work.
everyone watching can probably guess at least one of them.
That's very true. And let me tell you, as a bit of a spoiler, the first nominee, because I was watching the nominations like live as they were coming out, and the very first nominee they called was Elle Fanning, who I didn't predict. And I went, oh no, I think I'm, and I ended up rebounding. But when they called her, I was like, this is how this is gonna go. Like I'm wrong immediately. It was crazy.
Somewhere her sister is like, I need to get back into doing movies, like screaming at her agent, like, what the hell happened? That I am not the first Fanning to get an Oscar nomination.
I know. I did think about that, but you know what? Dakota was
Good for
amazing
her.
and all her fault. She's doing her thing, and one day she will get her Oscar glory as well. Best documentary short subject. I did remarkably well with this. I was shocked to see All the Walls Come Down not get a nomination because it's about the fires in the LA area last year. I thought that would be a shoe in here. I also was not predicting Children No More, Perfectly Strangeness. I think were the other 2 that I sort of missed here, but this is a really strong category. I need to say right off the bat, you and I were talking before we started recording. The shorts are always consistently some of the best films of the entire year. I did a great video with Joey Moser that's on our YouTube channel now about he watched, all 45 of the shortlisted films, interviewed a lot of the filmmakers. So he had a lot of really great insights. So if you're interested in the shorts and don't know where to start, I highly recommend kind of watching our video and starting there. But some really phenomenal picks here. And I think just across the board, the 3 shorts categories are really, really strong.
Yeah, I want to see a few of these. And I'm just judging them by their name, but
For best animated short, this was actually the category of the 3 categories, and maybe across the board, Oscar-wise, one of my weakest categories because I only got 2 of the 5 here. Very sad to see Snow Bear not get a mention. I absolutely love that short. I thought it was phenomenal. Let's see what else was on my list that didn't get in. Oh, Playing God is a great short, Amanda. Joey describes it as the creepy doll. Imagine like the doll restoration scene from Toy Story 2, but like dialed up by like 1,000. Such a good short. I was really, really sad to see that miss. But beyond that, in the best documentary short, I weirdly did better predicting the documentary short subject category than I did the best documentary category. I got 4 out of the 5 here. Again, a really, really strong category. And yeah, let's move on to any thoughts on the shorts in general, Amanda, before we move on to best sound.
I really want to see Jane Austen's period drama. If someone can send this to me, I would really, really appreciate it. You can reach out to me on Instagram or Twitter at Miss Amanda Spears. This just sounds like it would be really, really good.
I think I may be able to help you out, Amanda, because it is very, very good. I initially was predicting it based on the name. And then I watched it and I was like, oh, this is phenomenal. And then A Friend of Dorothy, a really, really good, like best live action short. I mean, all of these are like 2 people exchanging saliva. Sounds insane. It's such a good short, though. The Singers is great. Jane Austen's period drama, great. A Friend of Dorothy, really, really good. Butcher Stain, like just a chef's kiss of a category. I mean, there's a few of these categories like this year, but just a really, really solid category.
Kind of wish Wes Anderson would make another short. He was brilliant in that category a few years ago.
Absolutely. Who would have thought Wes Anderson's Oscar would be for a short? First Oscar would be for a short.
You know what? I actually think it was probably a smart move not to show up, because then people won't remember him holding it. So people might still think like, oh, he's never won. It's one of those, I think, like strategically, he's out of the country means he's just not, he wants his Oscar in a top category also, kind of a thing. But yeah, but I think, you know, you all have to, everyone has to play in the same sandbox as far as time and size. So it doesn't matter how big your name is in the shorts, but it is fun to see people dip their toe in categories like this.
Yeah, that's a great point about, well said, Amanda. Well said. For best sound, no major surprises for me here. I was really happy to see Sarat get in.
That was my surprise. I had Avatar. I went with Avatar. I just figured like the 1-2 punch, you know. Avatar's showing some weakness in their franchise. I think they've always been nominated for sound and visual effects. So,
well, here's the thing. So I thought that Avatar, I was like, I only had it in visual effects, I believe, and then I just felt icky about it because I was like, it's gonna show up somewhere else. Never in my wildest dreams did I think it would show up in costumes of all things.
They gave the middle finger to Wicked in that category doing that.
They really did. But anything else?
Like, you could have picked something else, you could have picked anything else.
But to move on to best visual effects, though, Amanda, this category really did surprise me because, you know, I had Sinners in my predictions. I hung on to it even though a lot of people were taking it out. I just felt like if this film was as strong as people said it was going to show up, so I was happy to get that right. And then I had a lot of pundits were predicting The Lost Bus. Apparently, the Bake Off that it did went really well, so that wasn't a huge shock to me. But Jurassic World Rebirth, a bit of a shocker, I would say. The Jurassic World sequels, the sort of franchise as a whole, hasn't been a major Oscar player. So was that something you saw coming?
No. I mean, I'm not surprised because it's visual effects, but I thought maybe Frankenstein would show up here. I guess there isn't a lot of CGI, Guillermo del Toro, but yeah, I'm surprised at the strength of F1. I also don't really think of that as an effects-driven film. I think of it more as an action film, like with stunts, but I don't see it as like this, you know, very heavy in effects. But I guess that would make sense for some of these crazy car crashes.
Yeah, I actually interviewed the VFX supervisor for Frankenstein over at Awards Buzz, and he told me a lot about, like, there was an insane amount of VFX in that film. Like, I can't remember the exact number of shots, but way more than you would ever think. And he was telling me about how much storyboarding they did and how much, like, it wasn't just him sitting behind a computer. Like, he was really crafting these images with Guillermo del Toro. So I was really bummed to see Frankenstein miss this one because it would have been a well-deserved nomination for them.
Yeah, I'm still, again, surprised that Avatar, that I'm still a little surprised with Frankenstein missing, that even with, he gets a little needy every now and then. I still think that Avatar, even though there are some Best Picture nominees in this mix, looks good. We'll have to see how the season plays out. It's so weird doing this without knowing what the BAFTA nominations are.
Yeah,
they're usually such a help.
They really are. BAFTA nominations come out on the 27th, so we still have a few more days, but yeah, and that's what's interesting about these predictions is, like, not having BAFTA in the mix, not having WGA in the mix, like, really made it more fun, but also trickier. Sort of separated
BAFTA more than WGA.
Yeah.
WGA is like, yeah, that was problematic.
But we definitely, you know, had a bit more of a challenge. And yeah, a new category in the mix this year. It was a lot more fun predicting this year than it has been in the past, just because there were these sort of new vulnerables. Wow, variables in the mix for us, making us vulnerable. See, there we go. I'm proud of that connection.
There you go.
Best production design. Any surprises here for you, Amanda? I'm happy to see Hamnet here. I mean, I know it felt like a shoe-in, but that just really impressive production design there. So I'm happy for them. They rebuilt the whole Globe Theater, so.
Yeah, I really love that one. I was surprised that One Battle After Another got a production design nomination. That might be the one that surprised me a little bit more because it is set in modern times, but there's a lot going on in that film, so it's not too big of a surprise. But it is always nice to see something set closer to our time than all of these period dramas. No offense to all of the nominees in those categories, but yeah, it's
Yeah, best makeup and hairstyling. I'm so glad that I stuck with my instinct on Kokuo here and stuck with it and predicted it, and it's such a deserved nomination for them. The Ugly Stepsister, I should have predicted. I felt like there was going to be one out of the box nominee, and that was going to be Kokuo. I didn't see two coming, but I love The Ugly Stepsister. It's really weird and out there. Highly recommend that film. Really cool nomination. Interesting to see the Smashing Machine hanging in there for that low and makeup nomination. Not a surprise when you consider how many legends are, in part of that hair and makeup team, but interesting that Frankenstein, Sinners, and the Smashing Machine were the consistent players of our season for this category.
Yeah, I'm not surprised with Sinners. There's a lot of makeup in that film, a lot of blood. Frankenstein, obviously. So again, it's kind of a good list, and we'll see how some of these Guillermo del Toro people, if they're coming back from The Shape of Water, how many more Oscars are they going to pick up?
Well,
there's a few of them. Yeah, there's like 3 people involved, so you never know. Some of these people might be getting towards their second Oscar.
Speaking of a Guillermo del Toro regular, Desplat getting in for Best Original Score. I did not predict him, maybe foolishly, but there have been times where he has missed, even when his films have been major contenders. Really happy to see Jerskin Fendrix here for Begonia. I love Begonia. I love that score. I interviewed him yesterday, and he was on vacation, like hanging out, was not thinking he would get nominated at all, was like fully just like drinking his coffee, telling me he was like hanging out in his basement. And now he's an Oscar nominee, which is really, really cool.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. Also Johnny Greenwood coming back, Max Richter getting his first nomination, which is crazy when you think about Arrival, all the other incredible scores. The fact that he just now got his first nomination is really, really cool. How did this category shake out for you, Amanda?
I'm happy for Alexander Desplat, but somebody needs to run like one of those campaigns like we saw for cinematography, and we've seen for sound editors in the past, where he's won, but it just feels like he's never really he just seems to pop up every now and then. It doesn't seem to be like when you were usually expecting it. But again, the strength of Guillermo del Toro and his technicians, he really knows how to pick the right people to work with. So it's nice to see him get in, and for there to be a surprise or two in a category where we're not expecting any surprises.
Yeah, and I feel that way about Johnny Greenwood, because I remember when Power of the Dog came out, the initial thing was, okay, this is the Johnny Greenwood Oscar, done. And then a similar reaction when One Battle After Another came out was like, okay, this is the Johnny Greenwood year. And now it seems like, Goranson is ahead. But I feel like somebody should really be focusing on Johnny Greenwood, because I love that One Battle score, and he's one of the most nominated composers without a win. So I would love to see some sort of breakthrough for him.
Yeah, it's not probably going to be this year. I mean, Goranson is looking to win both song and sound, and we haven't seen that since Justin Hurwitz did it for, of course, La La Land. So it's a rare accomplishment to win both. And if you want to make the case that he is the composer of our time, that is one of the things he's missing, because he does have a top 4 Grammy. He's on his way to an EGOT. He just needs to do a musical. Can't wait to
Yeah.
see that one. He's got the Emmy. If you want to be up there with the Alan Menkins and the Stephen Sondheims, yeah, I know Lin-Manuel Miranda says he doesn't care about awards.
He cares. I don't
Oh,
believe
he would
any.
love that Oscar.
Yeah.
He would love that Oscar.
Listen, anyone who says they don't care, I don't believe that at all. It's part of human nature to want to be awarded for your work. It is what it is. Ever since the beginning of time, everyone has felt that, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. Like any field that you're in, you want to be recognized for the work that you do. I don't, this thing of like, well, you can't want it, or I don't. It's a load of BS. This is a clean podcast, but I don't believe it for a second. I will say, Amy Poehler, there's a great Good Hang episode with Ryan Coogler, and they talk to
I love that one.
Yeah, and they talk to Ludwig Göransson as well, and they talk about their friendship in college and how Ryan met his wife, who was also nominated for Best Picture. Zinzi Coogler, the third African American woman nominated as for Best Picture. So that's really, really cool. So highly recommend that episode if you're a Sinners nerd and you want more to listen to. Speaking of another category,
he adored her. He absolutely adored her. Like, talking about seeing movies, she's like, my first laugh was watching trailers and going, nope. I'm like, that was probably a lot of ours. He just loved her. We could geek out about Amy Poehler forever, but yeah, with Coogler, he was so charming in that interview.
He
so
was
smart.
And you know what, Amanda? I don't watch a ton of interviews in general. I haven't seen very many interviews with Ryan Coogler, and his charm really surprised me. And he was so endearing and sweet. I don't know that much about him. I think on purpose he's sort of, shy and all that kind of thing. But he was so charming and lovely. And I was like, he has been out on the campaign trail, and if he keeps going, like, he's gonna charm his way into more than just that screenplay Oscar. Let me tell you,
he's got Christopher Nolan backing him, and he is the president of the DGA. They did a charming interview. I have a friend who sends me all these clips from FYC events for Sinners because she knows I love the movie, and it's like, he's like, I just want to know, what did the Irish ever do to you?
I love that.
and how much Rocky Road to Dublin, to have that number in there and to compare it to Clockwork Orange, and just that you could just tell how honored he was. And they've got a lot of big names backing him. We can talk about more of that when we get on to some other categories and specifics, but
yeah, because I think actually that is a running theme of the nominations today, is sort of industry backing and how that really benefited some people. Let's talk about best casting though. So this is the first year that we've had casting at the Oscars, our first ever crop of best casting nominations. What stood out to you, Amanda? Because I actually really love this category. I think it's really, really strong.
Well, I have a lot to say about casting. Mostly because I was very relieved that it was a juried prize, that they made these people go in there and explain why they needed to be nominated for casting.
They have a bake off for casting, like they do for hair and makeup. They have to go and talk about their process, and there was a short list that they
and why they deserve to be considered and nominated. I did hear that when the Joker tried to get nominated for makeup, their presentation was, we deserve an Oscar for putting up with Joaquin Phoenix. I'm like, well, that's an interesting way of going about things, but maybe not the whole presentation, I hope. But I do appreciate that. I worry that casting, like at the Emmys, becomes the second best picture or best series kind of prize, because I'll just back up my whole thought process on this. So the Emmys used to have the same kind of bake-off with casting, so you'd only usually see series in their first or second season get nominated and win, because you had to justify why you were in there, and it was only the casting directors voting. And so it was very rare for like Breaking Bad to win for its final season, and they had to justify that by saying like, we brought in Jesse Plemons, we brought in all those Nazi meth cooks. And then they expanded the category, and you get producers and directors also voting for casting. So if you're watching the Creative Arts Emmys, you can almost 98% of the time predict what's going to win series based on who's going to win casting. So that's my big fear, is that this is just going to become another kind of like Best Picture prize. They're not going to think about the casting of this. I will say, like, when the Emmys have split from like the series and the casting winners, it's usually for a really good reason. So like, for example, I'll just use Stranger Things season 1. Yes, that makes sense as a casting winner, because, you know, if you're going to base a drama series around a bunch of kids riding bicycles and teenagers, that's going to be a lot more difficult than casting Elizabeth Moss as the Handmaid. I think we can all agree. And that's kind of what my fear was with this, is that it was going to become like Big Little Lies winning casting, where Reese Witherspoon called 4 of her friends. It's still a little bit of my fear that something like, I don't want to dismiss One Battle After Another's win or prediction or place in this category, but I don't think it's as hard. It worries me going forward if One Battle After Another wins picture, but it automatically wins casting. That's my big fear, because I think a film like Sinners, or even Hamnet, where you've got to find those right kids, makes more sense as a casting winner. Like, even though I didn't think Anora was going to win Best Picture, it made sense at BAFTA why it won casting, because that is going to be a very intense casting process to find Mikey Madison. And then, it's not like Hollywood's littered with Russian actors. So I'm still a little worried about this. I might be less worried 5 years from now, but right now I am still a little worried that they're just going to rubber stamp whoever's going to be the Best Picture winner, regardless of like taking into account the difficulty of casting and the art of casting.
Yeah, I think having The Secret Agent in here is such an inspired nomination. I again got to interview Gabriel Dominguez, and it was so fascinating telling me how difficult it was to find actors who looked like they belonged in 1970s Brazil. And so I can totally imagine him at the Bake Off trying to explain this to people, and they being as flabbergasted and interested as I was. And so I think the fact that he gets an Oscar nomination for this is just so cool. And it shows me that the casting branch being smaller is really benefiting them to sort of go out of the box and pick something interesting. Because quite frankly, I was predicting Frankenstein, because I thought sprawling cast, this, that, and the other. And also, people are bringing up, how did Sentimental Value get all of their cast nominated and then they didn't get a casting prize? Well, something like Sentimental Value isn't that difficult to cast, as opposed to a Sinners, where you have, a Miles Catton and Neem Saku, and then Hamnet, as you said, like that, and Marty Supreme, I think just a really difficult project to cast, to sort of figure out the people that are balancing Timothée Chalamet and balancing the energy of this character that's really kind of, I don't know, slimy, and kind of what does his world look like. So I don't know. I'm really interested to see where we go from here, and I think this is a really, really good sign, because yes, Nina Gold, like, she's an absolute legend. She deserves to be here. I thought this category was just going to be a bunch of people in a Nina Gold vein, and the fact that we didn't get that, I think, is really, really cool.
Yeah, and I don't want to take anything away from One Battle After Another, but my first thought is it's Paul Thomas Anderson, and he cast 3 Oscar winners. Like, oh, woe is me. Like, One Battle After Another can win almost everything. I would be really a little disappointed if it won this category, only because I think there are better nominees in the art of casting as a whole. Like I said, I'm sorry for my long-winded explanation on this category, but
No. I mean, at this point, I
it's the
don't.
voting as a whole that worries me more than just the
Yeah.
nominating process. That's what I'm
Yeah.
probably trying to say more than anything, is that
I mean, I wouldn't say One Battle is the front runner at this point, but
no,
honestly, I
Sinners.
found the cast of One Battle kind of really inspired as well, because I mean, you do have Chase Infinity in there. I think Regina Hall was a really interesting choice. She's very much playing against type, and then you have the entire, Christmas Brigade, all those like weird racist, I forgot what they were called. You have, the nunnery women and that whole group that was really interesting and cool. Everyone that Leo sort of meets along the way, everyone that Benicio's character is sort of helping along, like each one of these roles is a role that had to be cast, and I think nobody in that cast felt really out of place. They all felt like they fit in the world that they belong in. Maybe not Alana Haim, as much as I love her, but everyone else, I was like, this just felt really deliberate and well done to me. So I think this is such a strong category. Best costume design, I feel less happy about this one because, as I said, Avatar Fire and Ash had to show up somewhere else. Did not think it was going to be best costume. Now, let me say, there's a lot of great memes out there about the costumes and this and that. They are actual costumes. They were handmade costumes. Deborah L. Scott, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. She's a very, very talented, wonderful costume designer. So no knock to her. It's just interesting that of all the different areas that you could award Avatar Fire and Ash best costumes, like how did we get here? Because even if you didn't want to go to like Wicked for Good, Colleen Atwood was right there for One Battle After Another, I guess. And Hedda, that's what I was predicting. Lindsay Pugh, phenomenal costume designing work. And there's so many costumes in that movie that seemed right up the Academy, sort of this like lush period drama with these big gowns and lots of costume changes and a sprawling cast and extras. So yeah, a real head scratcher for me how we ended up with Avatar Fire and Ash.
Yeah, I don't get that one. I mean, they really didn't like Wicked. They went out of their way not to nominate Wicked in this. But I also felt, I don't know about you, but with Wicked, I think the big disappointment for me was Glinda's wedding gown. I was expecting a little bit more. It seemed very simple for Glinda, and I wonder, if that's what really kind of cost them that one nomination, because to me, as beautiful as it was, I was expecting something a little bit more. I was expecting more. And I think that may be what hurt it in this category.
I mean, I don't know if it's going to come down to one particular thing, but if there is one particular thing, it has to be the sex cardigan, right? Like, that was just so misplaced and not right. And, like, I don't know. Like I said,
Yeah.
a head scratcher. I don't know.
And Glinda spent like the entire second half, the second film in the same dress practically. It's like,
yeah.
She changed clothes a lot more in the first film.
So I told you, Amanda, did I tell you I cheated and I was like, altered my best original song predictions at the last minute? Best original song, that fourth nominee, I put so many films in that for that fifth slot. And I finally settled on Girl in the Bubble because I was like, it's, Steven Schwartz. They'll just, obviously I was wrong. And you know what? I'm okay with being wrong because there's in no universe would I have ever predicted Sweet Dreams of Joy from Viva Verdi. So at some point in life, Amanda, sometimes you just take the L and you move on. So I take the L because I just didn't see it coming and never would have. So congratulations to them.
Yeah, you and Diane Warren. Can we just pick a year and award her? Can we just all agree to pick a year and just give this poor woman her Oscar? This is ridiculous. Oh, the poor thing. Every single year. But there is a silver lining to these 5. they do not include Miley Cyrus, who already, if you were seeing the Golden Globes red carpet, was making plans for her Oscar performance. And I'm like, you're not going to be performing on the Oscars unless they invite you to do the in memoriam.
Oh my Lord. Amanda, oh my God. Talk about taking me for a loop. Miley Cyrus catching strays on Chasing the Gold.
I'm sorry. I'm just like, she was just so cocky about getting nominated. I'm like, that's not going to happen.
Oh my gosh. Well, you know what? Diane Warren has a new record. She's now the most nominated person without a win in Oscar, without a competitive win, in Oscar history, which is just crazy. So, God bless her. She's wonderful, out there shaking hands, kissing babies. I interviewed her once and she was giving me life advice. I mean, she's super, super cool. I love her, but like you said, let's just pick a year and give it to her. You know, if it was up to
this
me,
is Netflix's fault. If they would have just campaigned her that year she was nominated for that Sophia Loren film, they would have won. She would have won because it was such a soft year.
I mean, that Hunting Ground song that she did with Lady Gaga was phenomenal. I would have loved to see her win for that. She should have multiple wins at this point, as if I'm being honest. I really don't know.
That was the year she thought she was going to win.
Yeah.
You could see it on her face. I mean, I no disrespect to Spectre. I just was like, how? Why?
Right. Well, Amanda, you bring up a really interesting point, though, which is the Netflix of it all. I think Netflix, they really were spread too thin this year. They didn't know where to put their focus, and I think all of their films were harmed by this, as evidenced by, you know, Frankenstein didn't get into editing, didn't get into VFX. It did very well, you know, 8 nominations and 9 nominations, I believe, for them, but like it could have done even better. You know, obviously big goose egg for Jay Kelly. I think there's a world where Train Dreams obviously could have done much, much better. What do you make
Adam
of
Sandler?
Yeah, no Adam Sandler.
Netflix
Joel
really,
Edgerton. No Joel Edgerton.
They had a lot of good projects. They just don't seem to know how to focus. Like, they don't really have, I mean, at least the one time they really focused everything was the Roma year, and you could say they just went a little too far. But I understand, and they really need to probably bring on Warner Brothers. If they do acquire Warner Brothers, they need to let their campaign people take over. No offense, I don't want to get people fired, but I think they need to have a more focused approach to this, because you know, there is a world where Adam Sandler could have made this 5.
Yeah, and I mean, in the context of best editing, like I did think Frankenstein could make its way in there. Josh Safdie, 4 nominations for him. The same 4 nominations that Sean Baker won last year. Is that going to happen? No. But interesting to see Josh Safdie, you know, kind of, if you want to talk about a sibling that, you know, kind of broke away, Josh Safdie, a 4-time Oscar nominee for Marty Supreme. And I think the Sentimental Value Best Editing nomination's interesting. I didn't predict it, didn't see it coming. Wasn't even in my top 10, to be honest. So that one is a bit of a surprise. And I also thought Chloe Zhao, you know, she was nominated for editing Nomadland. So, yeah, a surprise not to see her back here.
Yeah, it's always disappointing because this is one of the categories where women historically have done well since the beginning of the Academy. So it is kind of sad not to see a woman nominee amongst this group. This is an interesting one because they're all Best Picture nominees, because while I don't really think Sentimental Value fits, I do appreciate that it is a linear story put together well. There's not a lot of extra fat on this, so I do applaud the way the film was put together. So I kind of understand it. It's always nice to see something classically done. You know, they're not smashing cars or anything, and you know, again, this is gonna be an interesting race between the 2 films I've mentioned before, probably.
Yeah.
It's going to come down to
Yeah.
those two films in a lot of these categories.
Well, speaking of women at the Oscars, Best Cinematography, Autumn Durand Arkapow looks poised to win. She is now the 4th woman nominated for Best Cinematography. So hopefully part of the history that Sinners will make on March 15th is for Autumn. And if you're listening to us and not watching, Amanda is praying, as am I.
This is the one thing I want. Like, the one thing I want. And I know it's between Sinners and Train Dreams. And I was just praying Train Dreams was not going to get a Best Picture nomination to keep it out of this. And it, of course, had to. And I was like, this is the one thing I want to see. And it would be so fitting for it to be a Ryan Coogler film, because if you look at his filmography, he has always worked with a female cinematographer. And that deserves the slow clap to begin. It's important to him. His first female cinematographer that worked on Fruitvale Station with him and did the first Black Panther, Rachel Morrison, was the first nominee. So it is incredibly important it would be incredibly fitting for not only for him to potentially make history, but for this person to come from a Ryan Coogler film, because he has supported diversity on and off the screen. And I am just hoping against hope that this is finally going to happen. I wanted to see it happen. I felt bad rooting against Roger Deakins, but I'm like, if Rachel Morrison wins, I wouldn't be too upset. So I really, really want to see Autumn make history. She's the first African-American woman nominated. So let's just go. Let's crack that glass ceiling. I hope if she does win, that she's prepared for the moment, because we're going to want to hear her say something fitting of that. And that puts a lot of more pressure on you. Yeah.
Well said, Amanda. Well said. I am sort of agnostically praying for Autumn, if you will.
Me too. Very much wanting to see it happen.
Yeah. For Best Animated Feature, also an interesting bit of history made here. Natalie Portman, the first actor nominated in an animated feature category as a producer of Arco. Anything pop out to you here?
Yeah, I mean, good for Netflix. I mean, if they're slowly trying to build themselves up to a Best Picture win, taking on all these documentary categories and animated feature categories and some of the shorts, it is a good building point if you want to be the premier streamer, because that, hasn't fully been established as this is the one. Same thing as I felt with them on the TV side. Okay, if you want to be the TV streaming service, starting with winning all those limited series races is the good place to start, because that's, a good foundation. So I think Netflix is kind of on the right track. If they could potentially, I haven't seen which ones they have for documentary, but I'm sure they've got one in there. So they could still sneakily have a good night, because it's not like Frankenstein's not going to take home anything. So they're still one to watch.
This is okay. So let's talk about Best Documentary Feature, because this is the category that I did the worst in, outside of animated short, which killed me. I only got 2 of the 5. I predicted The Perfect Neighbor and Mr. Nobody Against Putin. Now, Netflix traditionally does very well in documentary feature, and I believe that 2 of the 5, because I know The Perfect Neighbor and The Alabama Solution are both on Netflix. I was predicting Apocalypse in the Tropics from Brazil getting in here, given how strong the Brazilian contingent is. I thought that 2,000 meters to Andrivica was going to get in here, did not. A lot of people were predicting The Perfect Neighbor to miss, because The Perfect Neighbor is seen as the front runner, and they like to snub their front runners in the documentary branch. I very foolishly, when I did the podcast with your old pal Amanda, Rob LaCoria, he was asking me about The Alabama Solution, and I was like, oh, it's too American. I just don't think that this increasingly international documentary branch was gonna go for it. Very
See,
happy
I
to be
always feel
wrong.
like people forget that it's still always an American, this is the American Academy Awards. So it's getting more international, but it's like 70-30 kind of split still. So yeah,
Well,
Rob
what did
loves these films.
yeah, what did you predict in best documentary feature? I'm really interested. Like, how did you do? Because
I haven't seen a lot of these. I'm behind on all of my documentaries. I've been so busy with so many other things that like I haven't had the bandwidth for these because I have to keep up on series also because I like to cover Emmys. But I saw the Alabama Solution and I thought that was really intriguing. I'm still surprised we've completely moved away from the documentaries that are about people. Just yeah. When
that's why
Michael
I'm
J.
happy.
Fox is still didn't get in,
Yeah.
I thought there's definitely this is definitely a trend. I mean, these things are cyclical. We see these trends come and go in these categories. I mean, at least we've moved away from it's got to be the most depressing Holocaust film. When
Yeah.
that used to be the trend for both documentary and international feature. Like whichever
Mhm.
one's the most depressing is going to win.
Well, yeah, because a lot of people were predicting Cover Up, and I was like, if I'm gonna get something wrong in documentary, it's gonna be that I didn't predict Cover Up, and that didn't make it in either. Also on Netflix, so I'm just I guess you take your L's on this one too. But yeah, best documentary feature was a head scratcher for me. So for best international feature, Amanda, of course, the big story was 5 neon films. Were they all going to get in? 4 of the 5 did, and then we have The Voice of Hen Rajab from Tunisia. Let me just say, I mentioned the agnostic praying for Autumn. This is my other agnostic prayer. It's not going to happen, but if there's any Oscar miracle on March 15th, I really want it to be The Voice of Hen Rajab. In my opinion, this is the best film of 2025. And if you ask me 10 years from now, Amanda, mark it down, y'all. Mark it down, come back. 10 years from now, ask me the movies that I still think about. I guarantee you I will say The Voice of Hen Rajab. This film has altered my brain chemistry in a way that is difficult for me to describe. This is a phenomenal, phenomenal film. I'm so, so happy to see it here.
Yeah, and look at France, 2 years in a row. You have to applaud them for making the necessary changes to the way they pick nominees after the Anatomy of Fall debacle. I mean, really, they doubled their membership from 7 to 15, and it's paid off well for them. And because there was like a decade where they could not get arrested in this category, and they're one of the countries that has the most wins up there with Italy. So it is. And look at Brazil back again. They're just a greedy little country all of a sudden taking up international feature. But yeah, I mean, I like this lineup. It's gonna be tough to get past one of them because this might just be the easy award to give that film. But
I don't know. I think The Secret Agent is a major contender here. I think there's a lot of passion for that film. It wouldn't surprise me actually at all if The Secret Agent ends up eking it out. Now, I have 2 questions that I want to geek out with you about in terms of international feature. Which, yes, I completely agree with you. Good on France for coming back. But when it was just an accident, post Palme d'Or, people were predicting it for a lot more than just original screenplay and international feature. I had Panahi in my director lineup for a very long time. It spoiler alert did not make the best picture lineup. What do you think happened there? Just faded and wasn't really top of mind?
yeah, I think so. I think that happens a lot. You can never tell because it's Cannes, and not all Palme d'Or winners win Best Picture. We kind of got spoiled recently with Parasite and Anora having success, but we went like 50 years between Marty and Parasite. So films fade from conversation, other films come up, and And the international feature category has become a major player. I mean, when are we going to see an animated film nominated for Best Picture again? It's been way too long.
Mm-hmm.
That's starting to, become a little bit of an oddity now that we can see multiple international features in the Best Picture lineup, but we haven't seen an animated one since, like, I think Toy Story 3.
Well, the other big sort of player in international feature, if you will, was No Other Choice. I have to be honest with you, not my personal favorite. It didn't play as well for me as it did for others. But Park Chan-wook has been doing incredible work since Old Boy. 20 plus years without any sort of recognition from the Academy. Where is the disconnect with him, you think? I have a theory, but I want to hear what yours is.
I think it's the ranked ballot of it all is probably what did him in. And we'll talk about this more, that this is not a populist vote. You do not just pick five films, 5 people, 5 anything. You have to rank them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And unfortunately, the film probably just did not receive the 1 and 2 votes necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I mean, not to be the bummer in this, but that's probably just what happened, is that it just didn't receive those necessary votes.
I agree with you. I think that is sort of the scientific reason. I would also say, like, I think there's something about, and I don't necessarily agree with this because I am a fan of Park Chan-wook's films, but I think there's something about them that leaves people a little bit cold. Maybe the emotional connection isn't there as much. So I think that might have something to do with it. And that we have this excellent comment about, is there an issue with style versus substance with Park Chan-wook films? So something is amiss, with why his films aren't connecting as much.
Yeah, I agree. It's unfortunate, but usually when you aren't nominated and people are expecting it, you're probably the 3rd or 4th person if you're ranking your predicted nominees.
Mm-hmm. Best original screenplay, Amanda. I fell for it. I saw Julia Roberts shout out Eva Victor at the Golden Globes right on the eve of Oscar voting, and I thought to myself, it doesn't take that many votes to get the Oscar nomination, right? If Julia Roberts is shouting you out at the Golden Globes, and if she was responsible for, Javier Bardem and a couple of these other surprise nominations that we saw, it was because she was really behind them and campaigning for her friends. I was like, maybe she can do it. It doesn't happen every year, but the writers branch does love their Sundance darling that hangs in there and comes in for a lone screenplay nomination. So I went down the Sorry Baby route. In hindsight, Blue Moon makes total sense. There's so much love for Ethan Hawke. It is such a writerly movie. The dialogue is very well done. So a great nomination, a well-deserved one. But what were you predicting for the category versus what we saw here?
I didn't have Blue Moon in. That was the one I missed. I think I went with Noah Baumbach just because he's Noah Baumbach. For Jay Kelly, again, there's always like one lone screenplay nominee in either original or adapted. Yeah, but the other ones don't really surprise me that much. I still don't understand why it takes 5 people to write a movie. 2 people I get. 1 definitely makes the most sense to me, but okay, it was just an accident. Sure.
Yeah, I'm interested to the script collaborators and how like that credit works. I'm not really sure. I'm gonna have to do some deep dive in like how we ended up with that. But you know what? I mean, I can't complain about more Persians at the Oscars. So my mom will be happy about that.
I'm
So
not trying to be offensive to anyone.
No, not at all. Not at all. I was surprised. I was like, how, that's what I mean. Is like, how does that happen? Like, how do you get credit as a script collaborator versus a writer? Like, I'm not really sure what the rules are. I'm going to have to do some sort of geeky deep dive research on that one. And I'll come back to you guys with a more concrete
the WGA probably got involved with this a little bit.
Interesting.
Yeah.
No major surprises in adapted screenplay. I would say I'm really happy for Will Tracy. I think The Begonia screenplay is really, really good. I love Begonia. Maggie O'Farrell, one of my all-time favorite authors, now an Oscar nominee. Really, really cool. And I've said time and time again on this pod, I loved Sing Sing. And so to see Clint Bentley and Craig Cuidar back for a second year in a row, I think is just really, really cool. And a massive congratulations to them. And for those of you concerned about the sort of Ryan Coogler of it all, I think he has at least one Oscar guaranteed to him. You know, adapted screenplay, I would say, is not as safe for PTA at this point, but I think he's at least going to walk away with something. I think the PTA being Oscar lists is going to come to an end in March. So rest assured, my PTA heads.
I was talking to someone the other day about this, and they're saying, oh, if Coogler wins director, then is he going to win with the, you know, what's going to happen in the screenplays? And I'm like, I don't care what anyone says about who's winning director yet. We're way too far away from being able to make a solid prediction in that category, in my opinion. But they really take into account the word original and original screenplay. And I feel like adapted is the one where there is a little bit more wiggle room. And, you know, Guillermo del Toro did give us a very interesting adaptation of Frankenstein, considering it's a book most of us have to read in high school. I had to read it in high school. So, but I do think this one's the more wishy-washy of there's always one writing category where I think, you know, yeah, if there was an upset, I could see how Hamnet did it. Yeah, if there was an upset, I could see how One Battle might not be as secure in this as, like, you know, some of the other, like, Sinners, maybe. If we want to like name front runners, I think people probably are like, don't dance around it, just say it. We know who the front runners are right now, supposedly, but I think One Battle is in more of a precarious position. One, because you can eliminate Blue Moon because it's not going to happen, and, you know, Hamnet was a great screenplay. So was Frankenstein. So was, you know, all of these. So it's fun.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think Frankenstein, Hamnet, and could both give One Battle, especially Hamnet. I think, like, best adapted screenplay, it's not done. It's still very much a race. And I should
look
mention
out for BAFTA for adapted screenplay, because as long as they don't go overboard in awarding Hamnet, like, we're like, okay, that's a little too far. That's never, ever, ever going to happen. If it won adapted screenplay, there is a world where I could think PTA might still be in trouble in this one.
Yeah. And I should mention, Amanda, I too read Frankenstein in high school. It's my all-time favorite book. I loved it when I read it, and I still love it. I just adore it. So love me some Frankenstein. Love me some Del Toro. Not my favorite Del Toro film, just to be quite frank, but I'm happy for him. Happy to see him here. Speaking of a category that is still very much in the air, Best Supporting Actress, I mentioned the first surprise of the morning was Elle Fanning getting in. I wasn't predicting her. I felt like, you know, she fell off after she didn't make that BAFTA long list. But Inga Slaughter-Lily is getting in, Amy Madigan, Wunmi Masaku, and of course Tiana Taylor. Now, Amanda, you mentioned that you missed 3 of the acting cast. So I'm just going to was one of your misses in this category?
Oh yeah. I had Ariana Grande in for instead of Elle Fanning. I'm not ashamed of it. I went with a SAG nominee. Yeah, I think it's a good list overall. We don't really have a strong front runner yet in this category, so there's still some wiggle room for someone like you and me to potentially come in and take over. Tiana Taylor seems to have the momentum in her favor right now, but, you know, stranger things have happened this season. It's a long season, Oscar season, so
yeah,
how long can she carry it?
Yeah. Speaking of a SAG nominee that you had in Ariana, I had Odessa Zion in instead of Elle Fanning. So we both made the same mistake, but with different people, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, it's funny, but I actually think it helps Timmy that he's the only nominee. we'll get to that. I'll get to my point with that in a few minutes, but I'll say
No,
that.
yeah, no, that's a good point. I will say I'm not completely ready to give up on Inga Ipslutter Lilius. I guess that's my own personal bias. I still think there is a path for her. I think if there's a world where, you know, she wins BAFTA, maybe it can happen. Again, outside shot, slim shot. We can talk about that as we get closer to the BAFTAs and closer to the big day. But also really interesting that Amy Madigan ultimately did become the only nominee from Weapons. Like, there was a lot of talk of, like, can it get into screenplay after the hair and makeup snub? Is casting a possibility? So in the end, she was the,
It's going to be really hard for her to win, not only being not in a nominated film, but being in a film where she is the only nominee.
Yeah.
That's going to probably be the end of it for her. Because we saw that with like Glenn Close, where you know, say what you want about her, about the wife, or versus, you know, Olivia Colman and The Favorite. The Favorite was nominated for 10 Oscars, so everyone in the Academy absolutely had to see it if you were voting ethically.
Yeah.
Whereas you didn't really have to see The Wife unless you were voting for, you know, you only had one reason to see The Wife. So it's going to be an uphill battle for her. She cannot sweep, which we know she can't because she did not win Globe. Unless she can somehow pull out both SAG and BAFTA, she's probably not going to win.
She really needed that Globes win to sort of put her on some sort of path of momentum. Now, I think what's interesting about the way that these 20 acting nominees have played out is, like, you know, Inga Ipslutter Lily is very much a newcomer. Wunmi Musaku, very much, you know, she's had a lot of TV success. She should have been Emmy nominated for several things, I would argue, at this point. But outside of her, I mean, Elle Fanning, yes, it's her first nomination, but she's been very much in the industry for a long time. Same thing with Michael B. Jordan. I would even argue Jacob Elordi's been around for a while. So, like, we really don't have a lot of newcomers. And the Academy voters really did fall back on names that they recognize for these nominations. And we sort of alluded to this earlier, but the star power, having some sort of support. You mentioned the Ryan Coogler connection with oh my God, help me out,
Christopher Nolan and
Christopher
you know,
Nolan. Yeah.
You know, Wunmi Masaku and Michael B. Jordan both did a panel with Viola Davis. You know, there's been a lot of people out there for Sinners in a really strong way. And, you know, getting into the next category, I'll mention a huge one.
I think if there's one person who had to owe their nomination to another, it's probably Delroy Lindo calling Denzel Washington this morning, thanking him for doing that FYC panel with just him. And, you know, Denzel Washington never does those, even as, like, for himself. But he went out there and did that for Lindo, and it is lovely to see him in there. I hope he is BAFTA nominated. Would I like to see a world where he wins? Sure. Are we living in that world? Probably not. I actually was right. I was between Elordi and Paul Mescal missing. Because I figured one of those two was probably number 3.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I picked Elordi, but I was right in my thinking.
Yeah,
So,
every year there's somebody that gets in everywhere and misses. And this year the burden of that fell to Paul Mescal. Sad for him, I guess, but very happy to see Delroy Lindo get the nomination that he deserved for The Five Bloods, quite frankly. And I have to give a shout out to one of my very best friends in the world, Donna, because we were talking about the Oscar nominations, and I said, I think Wunmi Musaku is getting in, and she was like, oh, well, she was really great, but you know who I really love from Sinners? Delroy Lindo. So the fact that they both ended up in there is just phenomenal. And I think once we all saw that nomination for Delroy Lindo, we went, okay, Sinners is in for something really special this morning, and it happened, and I'm just so thrilled for them. And something, a weird parallel. I saw Eric Anderson mention this on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. But, you know, the Shakespeare and Shakespeare in Love did not get nominated. And Gwyneth Paltrow famously won Best Actress. And now here we are again. No Shakespeare nomination for Paul Mescal, and Jessie Buckley's still very much the front runner there. So good luck getting an Oscar nomination playing Will Shakespeare, I guess. The one sexy earring was just not enough for those Oscar voters, Amanda. What are you going to do?
Paul Mescal's been better. He's going to be back. It's hard to feel bad for him. Isn't he playing Paul of the
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He's
Yeah.
playing one of the better Beatles. So this is just a blip. Again, it's probably nothing personal. If they were picking 5 people, he probably absolutely would be in. But I kind of understand why you wouldn't rank him higher than 3rd or 4th.
Right. Yeah.
And
well,
and
absolutely.
say what you want, but I was a little worried about Lindo only because Miles Caden showed up at SAG, and I was like, ooh, that kind
Right.
of also made a lot of sense too. So I thought that was going to be maybe trouble for both of them, that there's 2 now instead of just Lindo. But good for him. He's a veteran actor. And this category has taken a real turn because Stellan Skarsgård, as we know right now, is not nominated for SAG. We don't know if he's nominated for BAFTA. If he's not nominated for SAG or BAFTA, he can't win. The chances are very slim he would win. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
His SAG snub of the sentimental value snubs was the most alarming, only because he's got over 100 films to his credit, film and television roles to his credit, and he couldn't get his peers to nominate him. I don't care what language it's in. He should have been able to get in. But this category is still very much in play. Unless Benicio goes on a winning streak. I messaged you my 4 scenarios. I can go over those if you want, but yeah.
I mean, go for it if you would like to. No, I think, Skarsgård is the front runner, but he's a soft front runner. He's certainly been out there charming people, doing fun interviews with Alexander. So, I'm not ready to call it either way, but there's definitely scenarios in play, Amanda. Why don't you tell the audience what those are?
Okay, so I have 4 scenarios that happen. The first scenario is the easiest, and it's, okay, kids, it's been so nice playing. Benicio takes over. If he wins SAG and BAFTA, it's done. It's over. He will have won both peer group awards. Don't get fooled by the fact that Jacob Elordi has won Critics' Choice or Skarsgård has won the Globe. If he wins both of them, it's done. Second scenario is Skarsgård is not nominated for SAG. Let's just say that, SAG or the actor, however you want to think of it, goes to Del Toro. Skarsgård is nominated at BAFTA and wins BAFTA, and then this is a coin flip between the 2 of them, which would probably maybe give Skarsgård a chance to win because it is the, Christoph Waltz way of winning the second time, which is, is a very strong possibility. The third scenario is someone else wins SAG. Pick someone. I
think
really
Elordi could win SAG. I think there's a path.
Yeah. Elordi would probably be the most likely. If that happens and Skarsgård wins BAFTA, the path is very clear then. It will be Skarsgård for the Oscar. And then the fourth one would be like Del Toro wins SAG, BAFTA goes to someone else. I was thinking Mescal only because, he's British. That could still happen. It could still happen. But it goes to someone other than Skarsgård. Let's say it goes to Lindo. If that happens, that opens up a 5th scenario where
a 5th portal, Amanda, is gonna open.
Yeah.
If that happens.
Well, but think about it. It is a very British organization. It's a very American movie centers. If Delroy Lindo won BAFTA, then it's a flip between Del Toro and Lindo. because
Mhm.
those are the two best picture frontrunners. And what a statement that would be for BAFTA if they did that, only because it's an organization that has ignored Denzel Washington and a lot of diverse nominees. I mean, they pretty much cost Lily Gladstone the Oscar. It would be a big statement for them to do something like that, and it would, potentially open up that race even more. But we've seen this before. We have been down this path before. But if
Mhm.
Skarsgård absolutely still needs a BAFTA nomination to keep his Oscar chances alive.
Yeah. Well, I'm just gonna put this out there. So goes BAFTA, so goes the Oscar. I think whoever ends up winning BAFTA is gonna be probably our Oscar winner. We've seen
Unless
that,
it's Mescal.
Well, yes, but the caveat of all caveats, Amanda. Yeah, if the guy not nominated for the Oscar wins at BAFTA, then we're really in trouble. Yeah, I completely agree with that. But no, I mean, we saw this
with Jessica Chastain's year when she won for The Eyes of Tammy Faye. No one in the BAFTA lineup was nominated for Best Actress.
Yeah.
So it is not out of the realm of BAFTA possibilities.
No, not at all. Well, here's something that I want to raise as we kind of head into Best Actress, which is that I think some vote splitting happened here. Eric Anderson, he famously said that he doesn't believe in vote splitting, but
He's wrong.
one case of vote splitting I think was Chase Infinity. I think, yes, if she was that strong, I guess she could have overcome it, but I'm not ready to say that Chase Infinity missing is a sign of weakness from one battle after another. I genuinely think what happened is that some people voted for her in supporting and some people voted for her in lead, and it was enough to cancel herself out. I that's what I'm going with. So my question for you, Amanda, is A, do you agree, but also, do you think that may have also hurt Paul Mescal? And do you think if there's a world where he had gone lead, he may have ended up getting nominated? Would that have played out differently?
No to both for Mescal. He should have been supporting. He's missing from long portions of this movie. It's Jessie Buckley's movie. I will say it's very hard for men typically to get nominated for a film where they're supporting a woman lead, not a co-lead, but a female-led film. We saw that last year with Jonathan Bailey. So I do think Mescal was put in the right category. No, I don't think there was any vote splitting. And I think that it's very, very rare for the Academy to go against what they're campaigned for. The only recent example of that is The Reader with Kate Winslet. But
Lakeith Stanfield, I think, was also campaigning.
That's another really odd one where that made very little sense. But I do think that they kept Chase Infinity in lead. No, because they had Regina Hall and Teyana Taylor, but we always knew it was a thin lead putting her in there. We were expecting the strength of one battle after another to get her in. It's God, it's hard to say what did it in, if it was just the amount of screen time, or it might just be the amount of screen time is probably the problem more than anything, is that she's only in about an hour and a half of the movie.
Yeah.
It takes her about 45 minutes to show up. So
yeah. No,
I
think
a teenager. She's playing, she's playing really young. That sometimes they like them young, but that they don't usually like them that young.
Yeah. Well, you bring up a great point, though, that the Academy loves the long-suffering supporting wife, but they don't really love the long-suffering supporting husband. That's really interesting. That's going to stay with me, Amanda. A good nugget of wisdom there for you fellow Oscar nerds. No, the thing with Chase Infinity, though, I think they did a great job of positioning her. She showed up everywhere she needed to throughout the season. But when it's a close call, it doesn't take that many of even if a handful of people may have potentially put her in supporting as a protest or whatever, like that could be enough to tip the scales. Which brings me to my next point, which is that for many people, Kate Hudson's nomination for Song Sung Blue was the surprise of the morning. She was a strong number 6 for me. I am not surprised. I was lucky enough to get to go to California. And Amanda, when I tell you there were billboards for Kate Hudson everywhere in Los Angeles, once I saw that, I should have just predicted her. I just had a feeling about her. I should have gone with it. I'm not surprised, but I think that's also a case where, again, I love Kate Hudson. I adore Kate Hudson. She's very well connected. It doesn't take, just a few of the FYC events that she had would have been enough. Just a handful of votes from people that she's known her entire life. Again, not a knock to her. I think she's incredibly talented, but I think, the point that I'm trying to make here, it doesn't take that many votes to sway this thing when you're looking at a very, very close race.
And it doesn't take much apathy. I don't know if it's necessarily protest putting her in supporting for Taylor or for Infinity. I think it's probably more how many people ranked her third compared to how many people threw their support to Kate Hudson by putting her in second and first or second.
Yeah.
But this is the most easily callable race. This one's done.
Yeah. And
unless something takes a wild turn or
Yeah.
The Bride turns out to be the worst movie since Norbit. Like
Oh
we would
my
have to
God.
have that kind of a crazy, everybody had Eddie Murphy's name on that Oscar until Norbit came out.
Oh
So,
my Lord. If that happens, Amanda, another portal will open. I don't know to where, but we will get another portal to somewhere. But I want to
I
say
think
though,
there's a
real
better
quick,
chance that she throws a phone at somebody than there is that movie is
Yeah.
Norbit level crazy. But
and I think she would still win if she threw a phone at somebody, quite frankly. I don't think the Academy cares that much. When they like you, they like you. Adrian Brody, there's a lot of people that are like, he's not likable enough. I don't think it matters. I really don't.
I think it does matter a little because it did cost Russell his second Oscar in a row. So
Yeah. Speaking of Adrian Brody. Yeah.
I think you have to be somewhat likable, which is, speaking of younger whippersnappers winning Oscars.
Yeah, okay, so let's talk about the best actor of it all. I have a lot of opinions about Timothée Chalamet. You have a lot of opinions on Timothée Chalamet. For those of you, again, who are listening and not watching, Amanda is, shall I say, distressed at the moment.
I don't get the appeal personally. I'm not saying anything is wrong with him. I didn't really like Marty Supreme as much as everybody else seems to have loved it. I don't think the character earned the ending it got. I think you could pick a name out of a hat and come up with a better winner out of the other four, personally. But the one good thing is that if they do finally award him, then it will be done and we can move on with our lives, and he probably won't be nominated for like 5 to 10 more years. So I just think like every acceptance speech he gives makes me just want to throw something at him. Granted, he was better at the Globes than he was the Critics' Choice, where I was like, bravo to Michael B. Jordan for not rolling your eyes, because it looked like you were trying not to. I didn't know there was a post-credit scene. Everyone knew. How do you not know that? Like, oh, sorry.
There is a great piece on Vulture right now that I have retweeted multiple times from an incredible critic about how Timothée Chalamet used Black culture to promote Marty Supreme, and now that he is on the path to win the Oscar, his aesthetic, shall we say, has shifted, to put it politely. I don't know, Amanda. I mean, this is a whole other podcast, and you and I are a bit loopy to get into all of this today. We will kind of dig into it a little bit deeper. I will say, the Kylie Jenner of it all, I think awards pundits are being really weird about Kylie Jenner. Like, if they're like this performance and they are going to vote for him, Kylie Jenner being in his life, being his fiance, partner, wherever their relationship stands, doesn't matter. I thought it was so disturbing at the Golden Globes that Mark Malkin was like bringing up Kylie Jenner 3 separate times, and like, is he gonna thank Kylie as he walks up to the stage? Was so weird, made me so uncomfortable. I love Mark Malkin. I have been watching him since he was on E, since I was a literal baby, basically. But like, why are we being weird about Kylie? Every single award, including, I mean, I am talking about it on this awards predictions podcast. I get that, but they're all talking about like, but what about the Kylie Jenner factor? There is no Kylie Jenner factor. Either
No,
they like
it makes sense for him to thank his girlfriend. Like,
yeah. Either
I
they
don't
like
care
the
about that.
yeah, either they like the performance or they don't. But I will say I don't, I mean, I think he is at this point the most likely winner. I think there we may be overthinking it a little bit and he may just end up taking this one. But at this point, there's still very much a path for Leo still open, given that he is still in the presumed front runner. And then I think there's still very much a wide open pathway for Wagner Moura, given the love for The Secret Agent. I think he could still do it. I think he was very charming at the Globes. His reaction to his Oscar nomination this morning was wonderful. Speaking of which, Ethan Hawke is now one of the most nominated actors in Oscar history without a win. He's sort of,
and his daughter are adorable. I mean, that
adorable.
whole thing on the stage show where he's like, where she's telling that story about, if you haven't heard it, where she's like, he turns around and says, "I'm so sorry, I'm not taking pictures, buddy." And he's like, "I don't know who the F you are, but I want to talk to Robin." And he's such a proud. There's sometimes nepotism where it's just so adorable, you just don't care. And in this case, it's so adorable because he's like, "Yeah, that happens 5 or 6 times, but I'm just so proud of her. I don't care." You're like, "Good for you."
Yeah, and I mean,
It's so cute.
speaking of his Oscar reaction, in his statement, he literally says, like, I've had a very long career. There's a lot of mornings where it doesn't go my way. So today I'm thinking of all the people whose names weren't mentioned. I'm paraphrasing here, but I thought that was such a lovely sentiment.
Yeah, he's at a disadvantage because he's not in a nominated film. He's that's a long road to hoe for him, but there's still a path for Michael B. Jordan. It's not over yet. He plays 3 people, and he's had Viola Davis come out and talk to him. He's had Kevin Bacon come out and talk to him. He's had, Matt Damon come out and vouch for him for how difficult this must be to do and to craft 2 different characters, and 2.5 if you include that post-credit scene with that lovely "do the right thing" nod. If you've ever seen the movie, you should see it, because he's just giving a nod to Spike there.
Yeah.
But again, I have no problem with Timothée Chalamet, the actor. I think the problem is that every time he gives an acceptance speech, it's like, could a person of color act like this? Absolutely not. Could a woman act like this? No. I mean, it shows you a lot when 2 comedians from Hacks show up in matching outfits to make fun of him and his girlfriend.
Yeah.
If you saw the Critics' Choice Award, Paul W. Downs and Meg Stelter, I ship them. I've loved them every season, and now I think they are the coolest 2 people in the world for doing that. But I mean, I saw a video of Timothée Chalamet, and the way he comports with himself. It's like he showed up to the Critics' Choice Awards 90 minutes late. Owen Cooper, the young 16-year-old it kid of award season, wanted to go up and meet him, and he can't even stand up and say hi or shake his hand or take a photo. I mean, it's just the way he acts. That's kind of like
it reeks of privilege. I'm just gonna say it.
Yeah.
It reeks of privilege. He's very talented, but this kind of stuff could get in his way. Is it enough to
talk about people with privilege? Look at someone like Eddie Redmayne, who went to school with Prince William, and he doesn't act like this.
Mm-hmm.
Gwyneth Paltrow knows how to hold it back, and her godfather is Steven Spielberg. Like, where is his representation in this, that they're not telling him to act a little bit more earnest, to act a little bit more humble?
I
Oh,
mean,
God.
I think he has toned it down a little bit. I feel like he's behaving himself. So it's or attempting to behave himself or attempting to shift into something else. I don't know. But no, it does reek of. And speaking of, I mean, Kate Hudson, I think part of her appeal is she is so sweet and lovable, and there is this sort of humility, even though she comes from literal Hollywood royalty. So yeah, is it going to be enough to take him down? I don't know. And to go back to Michael B. Jordan for a second, I mean, again, like Ryan Coogler, he mentioned that one of the highlights of his nomination morning was seeing Michael B. Jordan finally get the recognition that he deserves. He's been incredible since The Wire, so he very much has a narrative as well. The race is not over. Long story short, the race is not
No,
over.
and the way the crowd reacted to Michael B. Jordan nomination. I mean, I know
Mhm.
that's just a bunch of journalists, but still, like, people really do love him. And yeah, I mean, Leo, I guess it really does show you the difference in their upbringing, that Leo's never been this cocky as a child. And Adrian Brody did everything he needed to do last year by keeping Timmy from his record. That would have
Yeah.
been the worst case scenario for Adrian Brody last year, was to lose to Timmy. It's like, he could have lost to Ray Fiennes, and I'm like, that's cool. I keep my record, you know. But
Isn't
it
that
does.
what you
What?
I feel like you messaged me that and you're like, Adrian Brody's record is safe. That was like the first initial reaction that I got from you.
Yeah, it was. I mean, that's like, if you have something like that and it's taking you 20 plus years to get back, the last thing you want to do, losing to Ray Fiennes is one thing. Like, you just lost an Oscar. That's not a big deal. You lost to one of the greatest British actors working. Losing to Timmy after he says he wants to be the Michael Phelps of acting, you're not just losing your Oscar, you're losing your record as the youngest winner. Now, I will say the difference between A Complete Unknown and Marty Supreme is he is the only acting nominee, like Adrian Brody. The Goodbye Girl had a few more nominations, had a few more acting nominations for Richard Dreyfuss, who is the second youngest. He won't even bump him out of his spot with this win because he's 30. So,
But Marty Supreme did show a couple signs of weakness overall. It could have easily got into score. It did not. And Odessa Zion, I mean, it would have been a show of strength overall for the film had she gone in. So there's some vulnerability for Marty Supreme for sure, where I feel like a lot of these other films did what they needed to do. I mean, yes, Blue Moon is, not a major contender, but that screenplay nod shows that there is love for that film. So it'll be the race super interesting to see how
and
this
the race
plays
is
out.
not over. Remember, Demi Moore won 3 out of the 4 precursors last year, and she still lost. So right now, he's only won the ones without any overlap with the Academy.
And that's why I think BAFTA, again, is going to be key. I think whoever prevails at BAFTA could be really telling, because we saw Mikey Madison take the BAFTA and we went, oh, Demi, she's not safe. Same thing happened with, Olivia Colman and Emma Stone for Poor
Anthony
Things,
Hopkins.
I believe. Anthony
We
Hopkins.
all ignored it.
That's so true. We keep ignoring BAFTA. Amanda, before we move on to director, I just want to touch on one other thing in terms of the acting categories, which is that it's like great to see an Amy Madigan come back. It's great to see a Kate Hudson come back. It's great to see Delroy Lindo getting in. But what I hope to see is these nominations actually leading to more roles. Speaking of Demi Moore, like, she's great in Landman, but I would have loved to see the Substance love translate to like more leading roles for her. Lily Gladstone
It might
has
take
done
some time.
It might take some time. I mean, Lily Gladstone has done some great television work. She's done some great film work, but like, I'm still kind of waiting for another big film breakthrough for her. So if there's one thing that I'm sort of putting out in the universe, in addition to like the voice of Henry Job pulling off a miracle, is that I hope that these nominations, like, I love a good Kate Hudson rom-com. Lord knows that a Kate Hudson rom-com has like carried me through some of my darkest days. But I would love to see Kate Hudson like do more like Song Sung Blue that shows off that she has a range.
Yeah, I mean, she has a sitcom on Netflix, and I enjoyed it. Her running like a LA Lakers style basketball team. I mean, I enjoyed it. I think Demi Moore's comeback started on television with appearing in that Ryan Murphy feud, and then maybe it does sometimes take time. The one thing I will add that could potentially be Timmy's problem is SAG has never had a back-to-back winner in the actor category. So if that holds, he might be in more trouble. He might be in a little bit of trouble. And when you're like, well, what about Russell Crowe? Benicio del Toro is so beloved by the acting branch that a few years they had these problems where they'd accidentally put supporting players in the lead category. So, for example, they accidentally put him in the lead category by mistake to people with traffic, and they said, well, do you mind, we'll reprint the ballots, we'll send them out. This is back when they sent these things by mail. And the acting branch said, no, we're not. The actor said, no, we're not doing that. Well, not only did he get nominated, he won for a supporting role, the lead acting race. And that is why Russell Crowe does not have back-to-back wins. So, don't count it. That's just one thing. Look out for Benicio del Toro's side. They love him that much. And two, they really love you. And two, they've never had a back-to-back winner in any non-television category. And if that holds, please, 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 that means that Timmy might be in more trouble.
Well, what's interesting, Amanda, too, is like these voting bodies have shifted pretty significantly. So that's interesting to see how that plays out as well. We saw this a lot with the guilds, where a lot of films did very well with guilds and it didn't translate to Oscars. Ann Thompson brought up a really good point on the great legendary Ann Thompson on the IndieWire podcast, which is that the guilds are still very much American, which as the Academy has shifted more international, and that's where some of this disconnect is coming from. The SAG voting body has shifted significantly since the days of Russell Crowe's sort of dominance, if you will. So yes, the guilds are still very important in terms of predicting and winners and all of that, but we're sort of in a different landscape than we were before, which is making it more fun, but just something to look out for.
Yeah, and I'd also point out that we haven't had really a year where there's been two very, very strong American films. Conclave very much felt like a British film last year. I mean, this is basically Sinners versus One Battle, with Hamnet a very distant third. So again, stats matter, and we have seen the races change after the guilds start taking it. I mean, that's when Coda took off. That's when, Honora made its mark. It's when The King's Speech took over. So it's not over.
It's definitely not over. Well, let's touch on director, because I knew that there was going to be some sort of some director from an international film that was going to get in there. Very proud of myself for predicting Trier. I just felt like there was so much love for him after Worst Person in the World. What do you think of the 5 director nominees that we got?
I like this 5. I think I had Guillermo. No, this is the 5 I had. I did not have Guillermo del Toro in. I kind of wish Guillermo del Toro was in there so I could say definitively this is the most diverse 5 we've ever had. Now I'm not 100% sure about that. But it's a good 5. It is kind of awesome that the only returning winner is a woman. Good for you. Love that. She's the first one to repeat.
Yeah.
Bravo to you.
Yeah. Well, she's the second, because Jane Campion won on her second nomination.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
She's the second woman to be nominated for Best Director twice, and the first Best female best director winner to be nominated again because
There's a lot of stats going on in my brain, and I haven't sorted them all out yet.
Listen, we can make a podcast about everything that went on to make this podcast.
But I love Coogler. I mean, he's had a lot of support with not over Christopher Nolan, but Kenneth Branagh is out there helping him out. And I do think there is a world where he could still at this point win. I'm not ready to give up hope on that happening.
No, absolutely not. I don't think director is sewn up at all. It's funny, taking us into Best Picture, one of my best friends texted me about Sinners and was like, I haven't been this happy about an Oscar nomination since Moonlight. And I was like, I think we may be, I don't know, I just feel like there's so much passion for Sinners. It's really not over. I think there's a world where Sinners comes out on top on March 15th. But Amanda, let me ask you this in terms of the Best Picture lineup. I went 9 for 10. I was hanging on to the secret. It was just an accident. Excuse me. Apologies to my mom because after I saw it was just an accident at TIFF, I texted her and I said, it's getting a Best Picture nomination. You can celebrate. Sorry, Mom. But did you have F1 getting in for Best Picture?
No, it was just an accident.
Mm.
Yeah, I missed. Well, oh no, I think I think so. I think that was the one I missed. I really didn't want to see Train Dreams nominated. As you know, I don't usually actively root against people or films. It's not my normal thing, but I just would feel like a little bit more secure with, like I said, I don't want a lot. I just want to see a woman win cinematography. And I just felt if its main competition was not nominated for Best Picture, that would help it out a little bit, because no offense to the cinematographer of Train Dreams, you're not Roger Deakins yet. So
yeah, well, in terms of the F1 of it all, I guess it was my number 11, so I shouldn't be too shocked. Never bet
good
against
for Apple.
Yeah, never bet against Dee Klein and Dee Gardner and Jeremy Klein. I mean, they have a really good track record with Best Picture. Joseph Kosinski did not get nominated for Top Gun Maverick. He's nominated now for F1, which is kind of cool. Every year there's like a dad movie slot, and F1 takes it. There's always sort of a blockbustery slot, which I could have gone to Wicked or to Avatar, so it goes to F1 this year.
But it's a good list. I can't remember a year where I've been this actively. I actively like the top 3 films as much as I've liked these 3. Like, I really do love Sinners. I love One Battle After Another. I loved Hamnet. Sometimes you need a good cry.
Absolutely. Amanda, speaking of like what the world is going to look like a decade from now, I think if we look back a decade from now and we have a Best Picture Sinners, if we have a Best Picture One Battle After Another, a Hamnet, I don't think you could really be upset about those. I think they're really, really solid.
No, and I think people forget that they don't vote for Best Picture thinking, how is this going to look 5 years in the future, 10 years in the future, 50 years in the future? They vote for it in a vacuum. So it is how certain films do win. It's how Moonlight won. Nobody wanted to be tap dancing in California when Trump's elected. One Battle After Another feels very timely, but Sinners is just this amazing piece of cinema.
And I think Sinners also very much feels timely and is dealing with these sort of tensions that are woven into our society. So I think both films are touching on sort of this question of how we got here, but in very different ways. But there's definitely this sort of urgency to Sinners as well.
And it's interesting when you think about the Jack O'Connell role in Rocky Road to Dublin, as far as like this number you're just not expecting, and you can't help but tap your toes. You can tell everyone involved's having a grand time. It is very interesting when you hear Ryan Coogler explain why he had to be Irish, why he was like 400 years old, because he wanted it to be another enslaved person, because the Irish were enslaved by the British. They lost their language. They lost their religion.
and he had lived so long, he had become the bad guy. He thought he was helping. It wasn't like this white savior thing. He had lived too long that he had become the villain. Plus, all the credit in the world for Jack O'Connell's ad lib of Sammy. Like, you could have nominated him for that, and I would have been like, yeah, that makes sense. Sure. Okay.
I mean, Sinners is gorgeous and a fun watch, and you can absolutely watch it as a popcorn vampire film, but it's also a history lesson. It's very much about, again, how we got here and these sort of class tensions and racial tensions and that have been there since the start of America and are very much still impacting us today. So again, there's very much like this timely
And there's
hope
some
to both of
really
these films.
beautiful music. I mean, it's going to be hard for it to win something like production design and costume design. I'll just say it. It's taking place in a barn. I'm sorry. It's taking place in a barn, 90% of it. And the costumes are not flashy enough to win costumes. If it wins costumes, it's winning Best Picture. I'd never say that, but if it won those 2 awards over Frankenstein, I would be like, yeah, there's your Best Picture winner, folks. But, you know, at the same point, it's nominated everywhere it needs to be, obviously. It's set a record. It almost feels like the Academy wants to award this film.
Yeah. Amanda, we've got a race. There's plenty to discuss. Is there anything that we need to touch on before we say goodbye?
Watch out for PGA. Watch out for DGA. While these awards feel more international, you know, if Sinners strings it together, or if One Battle can string a couple of these together, SAG is going to be interesting. Can Leo win on his 8th try in ensemble? You just get up there and say, I finally did it.
A fun stat for you that I saw, which is that Leonardo DiCaprio, I believe, has now either tied or surpassed Robert De Niro's record for appearing in the most Best Picture nominees. How cool is that?
Yeah, I mean, he might be appearing in his 3rd Best Picture winner.
Yeah.
That's insane.
I alluded to this earlier, but you guys have no idea the chaos that has gone into this episode of Chasing the Gold. I am like extremely ill. I'm very likely to faint right after I get off this camera. We've had dogs go a little bit insane.
I'm
Amanda,
so sorry about that.
No, I'm so sorry that I am near death, quite frankly. Thank you so much for hanging in there with me. Thank you so much for joining me for this. Amanda, where can people find you? You're such a, first of all, just like sweet, kind, wonderful person, but just a really fun follow as well.
Well, that's unusual to hear. Most people call me the C word in the comments, so I appreciate that one. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Miss Amanda Spears. I do some other podcasts from here and there. I definitely will be making my predictions on SAG Awards soon because those are my specialty. So,
well, we do love kind comments. I would love to hear what you guys listening and watching think of these nominations. Obviously, please keep the comments kind. If you follow us for any amount of time, you know that JD and I both love responding and engaging with people. But of course, please always keep it kind and civil. We're just very happy. We are people. We're total Oscar nerds and dorks, but we are still people out there trying to move through the world as best as we can. So thank you for watching and listening, Chasing the Gold. I am at Shadan Larkey everywhere. Follow In Session Film everywhere. Support all of these wonderful movie lovers that are just trying to share their work with the world. And we will see you very soon for more Oscar stuff. I should mention JD and I are doing a live stream tomorrow night at 9, tomorrow, Friday, January 23rd, to react to the Oscar nominations. I'm not exactly sure when Chasing the Gold is coming out, so it's possible that is a YouTube video that you can now watch, but engage with that because I know JD has a lot to say that he is saving for that live stream, so we hope to see you there. Amanda, thank you again. I really adore you, and I'm very lucky to have you here.
Thank you for having me on.